Today we're going to talk about lower body stretches to add to our recovery program. For these exercises, we're going to want to use a TheraBand or a Superband, or you could use a belt stretching strap. You could use your belts that you would hold up your trousers. If that's the case, then I would recommend at least having 2 belts to attach together as you perform this stretch. So we're going to lie down on the ground as we're going into these stretches. And the important thing is to set a pretty good anchor on your foot, mainly on the ball of the foot. So we're going to take this Superband and going to wrap it around the ball of my foot. You could, depending on what you're using, you could use 1 or 2 loops around. For this purposes, I'm going to use 1 loop around the foot. I'll loop it around. From there, we're going to bring our feet together. And throughout most of this exercise, we're going to want to maintain a dorsiflexion or flexion of the foot with our toes pointed up to the sky. Alright, first we're going to start off the hamstring stretch. Now it's important to note that when we're doing these stretches, they're all going to be static stretches, meaning we're going to hold them for a prolonged period of time of about 20 to 30 seconds. You never want to do this as part of your warm-up when your muscles are cold. It's like taking this band, throwing it in a freezer, then ultimately stretching it after it's been frozen. What happens, it's going to snap the band or tear apart. And in that case for us, we do that with cold muscles. We're going to tear a muscle or a cool muscle. Alright, so as we're in this stretch, we're performing a hamstring stretch. Again, flexion of the foot is what I'm aiming for. And just going to have a nice pull onto the stretched leg, making sure that knee is nice and straight. Alright, if you want to get good range of motion and a good stretch, try activating and pushing your small back into the ground. That's going to raise the leg up a little higher, giving you much more of a stretch as you perform a stretch. Okay, the next we're going to do is pull that leg off to the side, stretching out the IT band area, the TFL and the glutes. And then we're going to open up this hand and look towards that hand as we perform that stretch. Now again, we're going to hit the outside part of the leg, and for some people, you may not be able to feel it as efficiently on the more middle part of the thigh. So if that's the case, cant that foot or that toe down towards the ground as you perform that stretch. You may feel a little bit more of a stretch in that area. So you're going to open up, hold that for about 20 to 30 seconds, and then relax. And we'll go into our next stretch. For our next stretch, we're going to do is the outside part of our leg, hitting the adductor and maybe even some areas of the hamstring. Here we're going to drop that foot out to the outside and pull on the leg, again keeping that foot nice and flexed. Hold that for about 20 to 30 seconds. Next up, we're going to go into a quad stretch. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. Some people like to just transition right on a side roll, meaning rolling over to the side, and we're going to pull over top of our shoulder. Main thing is, as you're doing this, try to keep the knees together. Try to create a lot of torque at the knee. So you won't want to pull something on the middle part of or the medial part of the knee. So here, keep that knee down, and in this position, we're going to be plantar flex, meaning the toes are going to be pushed down. As you can see, the toes are pushed down, and I've got a nice good pull over the top of the shoulder. Some people, myself in particular, like to do this lying down, mainly because I can transition to hip flexor stretch from this position. But here, we're going to do a quad stretch. Again, keeping the knees together as I'm pulling over the top of the shoulder. Hold that for about 20, 30 seconds. Again, if you wanted to transition to a hip flexor stretch, all you would have to do is raise this knee up off the ground a little bit as you pull, and you'll probably hit the hip flexor. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that sometimes, only because I hit a small segment of the hip flexor. But for quad stretch, still works just as well, especially if you want to get that higher end of the quad. All right, the next one we're going to do is a hip flexor stretch as well, but we're not going to need the band for that. Here we're going to get into a half kneeling position. Half kneeling position is 1 knee down, and then my foot is relatively pretty close distance with that back knee. All right, in this position, we're going to stretch out the hip flexor, applying a principle called reciprocal inhibition. And what reciprocal inhibition is basically activating one side of the body and trying to deactivate another. In this case, we're going to activate the glutes and deactivate the hip flexor. It's always best when you're in this position to keep a nice narrow position between the front foot and the back knee, because you're going to hit a lot more of the hip flexor, more deeper into the to the muscle and into the quad as well. All right, so we're contracting our glute, and we want to maintain a nice tall posture, keeping the hips, or the ribs down, and a nice good extension of the upper spine. Okay, you don't really need to lean forward, but if you do, that will dive into this quad a little bit more. You stretch out and hold that contraction of the glute the entire time. That'll get more of a deeper stretch to that quad as well as that hip flexor. If you want to get even deeper to that and hit the upper body as well, you can drop this hand down and raise this arm up, lean over to the side. Again, while you're holding that contraction of the glute, that's going to give a nice good stretch from the quad to the hip flexor and then up to the lats and the upper body. So that's a really good stretch. Now again, there's a lot of different ways to do the hip flexor stretch. I'll give you the one with the band earlier, and then this half kneeling position. That's my preference, is to do the half kneeling position. A lot of other people traditionally like to do the hip flexor stretch when the foot is further out, and they're going to dive deeper towards the lead leg. I'm not a big fan of that one because it gets a smaller segment. So my recommendation for most people to get a good, nice, effective stretch is to keep a nice narrow stance between the front foot and the back knee. Again, applying reciprocal inhibition, activating that glute, and then hitting that quad and that anterior hip flexor and getting a good stretch out of that. Really, there's not much you need to do other than hold this position. So those are some great lower body exercises. Stay tuned for the upper body stretches in my next video.